Good morning, party people. So today I'm going to start a reading of White Girl Bleed a Lot by Colin Flaherty, The Return of Racial Violence to America and How the Media Ignores It. So I was first introduced to Colin Flaherty um, back when Stefan Molyneux did his 17-part series about race and IQ on YouTube of all things. And I remember I remember this very clearly because that 17-part series was wild. I think it introduced the idea of human biodiversity and race realism to a lot of normal people. And each part, Stefan Molyneux would talk about the statistics and he would bring on different experts in the field and sometimes people that were just kind of culturally talking about like Jared Taylor. In fact, the Stefan Molyneux Jared Taylor interview is really good. I highly recommend looking up that one. It's nice because Taylor's used to a lot of hostile interviews because of his politics, and that one is not hostile. And Molyneux takes a great deal of interest in kind of his background and his perspective and stuff. And it was such an earnest attempt at kind of trying to understand where these people are coming from and analyze um what's happening to white people in America, and Molyneux's not a racist. And when Molyneux was branded a racist because of this series and because of other comments he's made, I was like, wow, there really is no like getting past this and like kind of connecting with the deeper issue here. People just don't want white people talking about racial issues at all. So as the series went on, the internet said you should have Colin Flaherty on to Molyneux, and so we had him on. And I remember this so clearly. I was carrying stuff into my parents have a lake house, and I was moving stuff in for them and setting up my bedroom. And Molyneux starts introducing Colin Flaherty, and I'm expecting Colin Flaherty to come in. It's kind of, oh, this is a very serious subject, race in America and all this stuff, and have facts and figures and numbers. Flaherty comes in like your drunken uncle, like a bat out of hell, and he is just like, in some cases in America, the racist crime is 1,000 times higher. The blacks are committing 1,000 times. And Molyneux's like, do you have evidence? And Flaherty's like, do you need evidence? This is, oh, hold on. You don't need evidence. This is out of control black crime. He's just like a racist uncle, just like screaming at Thanksgiving dinner. And Molyneux, he in the video interview, Molyneux's kind of like dumbstruck. And at first I was too. I'm like, what is this guy? This guy's ruining the whole thing. He's making us all look like terrible racists. And maybe about after giving the interview like maybe 5-10 minutes, I was so on board with Flaherty. He's so animated. He's not like a raw data guy. Maybe he is in this book. I haven't read this book. I've had this book for like over a decade and I just never read it. And but he's like a man's man. He's experientially true. He hitchhiked across America, which what a cool thing to do. Even back in like 2010, whenever he did it, that was still so cool. So he like knows he's a man of the people. He knows people. He talks to people in small towns. He got to know people. He's socially very aware, and he has a lot of social connections. And he ran a podcast for years. Um, I only listened to a couple of his episodes. I think they even did a White Girl Bleeds Law podcast, and uh, I listened to one episode, and I gotta find that episode and pimp it out a little bit because it was fan fucking tastic. It was about a woman, very sad, of course, a woman whose uh, daughter and maybe it's her son and husband. No, it was her daughter and her husband and maybe even her son, or maybe her son was paralyzed, were all killed by this black guy, and how the whole neighborhood, which like was mostly black that they were in, like turned on them for getting killed by a black guy. And and Flaherty just lets her tell her story, right? And because the Jewish controlled media wouldn't let her, get this story out, was considered racist. And like parts of that podcast, I gotta find. I'll look it up. Are like burned into my mind. I couldn't like there's all these stories about like racist attacks in America that you never hear about, And this is just a drop in the bucket. But I remember her describing like this guy, bursting in their home, and so they knew the guy, right? I'm not sure if he was dating their daughter or if he was trying to date their daughter and she turned him down. But he was kind of like a long-term family friend. So I remember she talks about him bursting into their house, and he's like in the walkway, like leaning from the door, and he stabs her son, or maybe it's her husband, in the neck, and then she's talking about like the blood like squirting out like geysers of blood in the hallway, and she's trying to scream, she's trying to stop him. She's like, "What are you doing? She's crying, and she said he had an erection and he was orgasming while he was killing her husband. And I remember that left such a strong impression on me. I'm like, holy fuck! Like these people, that's sick. And Flaherty is very quiet throughout this whole interview. He's just like just letting her like pour her heart out, and you can tell that she hasn't been heard, she hasn't been seen. The media would just brand her a white racist Karen lady. Um, yeah, and so that was a powerful podcast. And when Flaherty died, he died a couple of years ago. I think he died. I don't know when he died, but I just remember seeing that there was a like White Lives Matter protest, and they blocked off a highway because that was like the things people were doing back then during the BLM protests. So it must have been, was this either 2020 or 2016, whatever. I'm not sure if it was the first BLM protest or the second one, but Flaherty, he must have called in like every favor he had. That's the only idea that I had that would make any sense, that they didn't like arrest him, or like, because he had a bunch of people out there, and I as far as I know, I didn't remember seeing any arrest footage. So Flaherty probably knew like police sergeants and all these people and stuff. So that was my theory anyway. But anyway, let me try to squeeze some of this book in. I know on the cover of the book they have quotes in the back, but the cover actually has a Thomas Sowell quote saying, "Reading Colin Flaherty's book made painfully clear to me that the magnitude of this problem is greater than that I had discovered from my own research. His documents both the race riots and the media and political evasions in dozens of cities." Message from the author. So this is like one page in. "Throughout this book, you're going to see some odd little symbols that look like they came from a Mayan temple. These are the most important part of the book. These symbols will take you to the videos that made this book possible. Without videos, no one would believe that racial violence is as bad as it is." Oh, so there's probably broken QR codes all over this book. That's nice. Uh, let's see. I'm not going to read all the acknowledgments. Okay, introduction. "There's a race riot going on. Racial violence is exploding across the country. Cops deny it. Newspapers do too. Thank God for YouTube." There's some writers, like I was trying to read Solzhenitsyn's 200 Years Together, which is about the Jews in Russia right before they start the Bolshevik Revolution and kill 60 million Christians. And Solzhenitsyn is such a boring writer. I think it's important for me to read that book so I get a full breadth of kind of the Jewish problem in Russia. But I will I'll have to get back to it. And also, like, you really want to read 200 Years Together because it was banned. The Jews intentionally stopped it from being published in America, even though Solzhenitsyn is such an important writer. He's the one that wrote the Gulag Archipelago. He's a famous Russian writer. Okay, so the beginning. "Racial violence is back. In hundreds of episodes across the country since 2010, groups of black people are roaming the streets of America, intimidating, stalking, vandalizing, stealing, shooting, stabbing, raping, and killing. But the local media and public officials are largely silent about the problem. Crime is colorblind," says Milwaukee police chief. "Race is not important," a Chicago newspaper editor assures us. That denies the obvious. See, no one says that when they were trying to integrate the schools in the 60s. "America is the most race-conscious society in the world. We learn that fact every day from black caucuses, black unions, black ministers, black teachers, black music, black art, black poets, black salon owners, black public employees, black names, Shaniqua, black police officers, and the black media. We learn it in stories written by members of the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABL, or BJ. I got NABJ. We talk about everything black except black mob violence and lawlessness. That's taboo. And he writes just the way he talks. Um, and the result is the few know about it. Fewer are still talking about it. Today is an academic. Oh my God, words. Today is at epidemic levels in almost every city across the country. More than 90 cities have been under attack. Some cities have suffered dozens of attacks in the last 2 years alone. This list of cities under attack is getting longer. And you remember, this is all before BLM. This is before the billions of dollars of property damage from a fentanyl-infected criminal getting, overdosing. Atlanta City, Baltimore, Birmingham, Boston, Brighton Beach, Charlotte, Chicago, Dallas, Denver, Del Mortes, Georgetown, Greensboro, Kansas City, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Miami, Milwaukee, Mobile, Montgomery County, MD, Nashville, New York, Padonia, Philadelphia, Portland, how do you say that? Rio Beach, Rochester, Shinga Springs, St. Louis, Seattle, Toledo, Washington, D.C., and Wilmington, and many more. Del Morris, Iowa? Yes, at the Iowa State Fair, no less, during what the Del Morris Register called Beat Whitey Night. Ooh, Beat White? That's not good. I'm Whitey. Let's see. Laura, Illinois? Absolutely. As many as 9 race riots occurred in 2011 alone, right in the heart of Middle America, including a large-scale illegal fireworks display in a housing complex that turned into a riot. Milwaukee? Yes, on the 4th of July, 2011, after looting a nearby convenience store, a crowd of nearly 100 blacks set up upon some white teens at a picnic. Could you imagine if you were a script writer and you're like, let's start a fireworks display, and then there's some whites picnicking. Let's go beat them up. Like, you can't write that. It's racist. Reality's racist. After beating one white woman, a black woman noted, "Oh, what girl bleed a lot." That's the name of the book. That's where we got the name of the book from. We learned the origin story already. We're only on page 8, and we learned the origin story. At the Milwaukee State Fair, and was probably the most explicit and public hate crime in years, hundreds, remember, not 100, hundreds of black people roamed the fairgrounds targeting white people for violence. You didn't hear about that, then you probably didn't hear about the biggest race riot in America. Black Beach Week, every Memorial Day in Miami Beach. You will. Along with the violence, it is amazing how often the videos featuring laughing and mocking that would never make it into a movie script because it's too pathological to believe. That's what I just said. Truth is stranger than fiction because truth does not have to make sense. Well, it actually does make sense. In August 2011, on a porch in Wilmington, Delaware, 10 black men beat a delivery man unconscious while they laughed. I was only 200 yards away at the time and would have heard the incident. I had not been sitting next to a fan. 2 months before, a dozen black people attacked joggers with tear gas at Brandywine River Park. A few weeks later, a mob of 20 black people surrounded a bicyclist, knocked him down, and stole his bike. But since only 4 people actually put their hands on the cyclist, the local news said only 4 were involved. Very sneaky. This kind of math happens a lot. A few weeks after the incident, 10 black people attacked a minister. He was left dazed and confused, not just by the attack, but also since his church had done so much to promote racial harmony. Yeah, that's what you say while they're beating you. This is like the during the BLM riots. There's a video of them like throwing shit through a guy's window, and he's yelling, "I support you! Don't stop it!" Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Not just um, a year later, a black mob attacked another delivery driver, and three doors down from my house. God, Colin, and right in front of the homes of two police officers. That's just a glimpse of the racial violence in one small town. Almost astonishing as the widespread racial violence is willingness of people in authority and media to deny it, ignore it, explain it away, condone it, and even fib about it. I know it's a big accusation, but I'll back it up. In Chicago, after a week after weeks of racial violence and weeks of newspapers refusing to mention the crime was exclusively black mobs rampaging through the downtown, the superintendent of police said he figured out who was to blame for gun violence. Sarah Palin. I'm sorry. Sarah Palin was John McCain's running mate years ago. She was made fun of a lot in the media. She's kind of a right-wing nut job. A year later, he blamed the Pilgrims. Okay. Colin wrote a comedy book. Yes, this is what he said, and I explain more in Chapter 8. Congressman Billy Rush said black violence in Chicago was routine, and only reason why anyone was paying attention to it was because it was black and white violence. Sure, why not? That's the reason. This is a theme we hear in Rochester, Washington, D.C., and dozens of other places. Quote unquote, what's the big deal? This has been happening a long time in black neighborhoods. So, Congressman, this is man bites dog. This is the same idea, right? You have lower standards for the dog than you do the man. What does that say about black people? Or these people, they're the real racist guys. Congressman Rush is probably right, which means this problem is hundreds of times worse than we think. In Milwaukee, 4th of July incidents, the police refused to take reports or make arrests. For all intents and purposes, it would never have existed if not for some victims coming forward and demanding actions. Many do not. And actually, you know what's great now is now we have phones, and our phones are our judge, jury, and executioners. No, our phones are our jury of 12, right? People can't lie when you have a video. In Philadelphia, Asian students in the public schools had endured years of racial abuse at the hands of black students. The solution the school superintendent came up with was to give the Asian schools a pamphlet on how not to antagonize black students. Just wear less revealing clothing and you won't be raped. According to the New York Times, the 2010 riots on the streets of South Philly had no racial component and were nothing much, said the mayor at first. Then events forced him to acknowledge the obvious group of black people were taking racial violence to a new level, a dangerous level with greater frequency. Man, can't stop, won't stop. It's not just the media that is reluctant to connect the dots of racial elements behind the violence. Even many victims do not like to talk about the race of their attackers. Some are flat out afraid. Violent crime will do that to you. In Philadelphia, one victim mentioned later said talking about the race of her attacker was quote unquote creepy. Can't be creepy. Yeah, boy, you wouldn't want to be creepy. What a woman thing to say. Her friends say pointing it out is just racist. In Milwaukee, another victim said it would be too divisive. In Springfield, what be punched in the face isn't divisive? God. Charlie Kirk is dead, by the way. In Springfield, Illinois, football fans accuse a mom of being racist. Oh, what an accusation. And she demanded justice for her son after he was almost killed at a party thrown by a black fraternity and attended by members of the football team. Almost killed. Were the people that almost killed her son, were they racist? No, they were black. They were widow angels. The denial is deep. So is the intimidation from those who do not wish anyone to talk about this topic. Gawker.com blamed the Drudge Report for bringing this epidemic to of racial violence to our attention, saying the stories were run-of-the-mill summer crime stories that happened to involve black people. Deniers also say the same thing. One does not. One, it doesn't exist. Two, here's why it does exist. Psychiatrists tell us we are only as sick as our secrets. Race is our biggest secret. It is a sickness we can end. Careful there. Police, media, and even victims may be unwilling to talk about racial violence, but the internet, YouTube, and Twitter specifically tell the truth. 2010, when YouTube wasn't a mess. I first started reading about the racial crime and violence epidemic on the Drudge Report while researching the topic for a talk radio show my brother and I hosted in Wilmington, Delaware, WDLEL. One story led to 5, which led to 25, which led to 125, and so on. My writing has won more than 50 awards, has appeared in more than 1,000 media outlets around the globe, including the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, Boston Globe, and Miami Herald. Writing about race and crime is not new territory for me. I used to be a ghostwriter for the first black chair of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. I wrote stories that got a black person out of prison after he was unjustly convicted of trying to kill his white girlfriend. That was a big deal for NPR, the Los Angeles Times, and others. I wrote several stories about fake hate crimes and how perpetrators suckered the daily papers into writing them. Today, I write about racial violence and its denial for the World Net Daily. Over the years, I have found that writing about race can be treacherous, so here are my rules. No stereotypes, no generalizations, no explanations, and no apologies. No explanations. Okay. No cause or solution, just the facts. Oh, believe me, Colin, we'll help you with the causes at least. As I started to unravel the thread of the attacks I read about on the Drudge, it became clear right away that this was happening all over the country and had for at least 2 years. It was also clear that newspapers were underreporting it when they reported it at all. But whenever I showed the YouTube videos or news accounts to a reporter, she would always say race had nothing to do with it. This denial was so widespread, I knew there was enough information for more than a magazine article, so I published the first edition of this book in 2011. That opened the floodgates. Since then, I have gathered more examples of black mob violence from all over the country, cities big and small, places where you might expect it and places where it came as a total surprise. Places like Padonia, Illinois, or Indianapolis, Charlottesville, Grainsville, Springfield, and a dozen others, unlikely cities, both big and small. Oh, Petronia, that's how I say it. No T. Since then, I have completed notes, gathering more accounts, including QR codes to make links easier to find. These are lots of sources, URLs to picture videos that don't just tell you about the events. They show you the actual events. If you are reading the ebook, just click on the video. Oh, there's an ebook through the links to the articles and endnotes. If you are reading the print book, you don't have a smartphone, you can use the blah, blah. If you keep up currently posted at whitegirlbelievebot.com, I should check to see if the site's still up, because these links have a way of disappearing. A lot of people bought the first edition of this book for themselves, for their recanted brother-in-law or coworker who simply denies that it's happening. I'm grateful for the support in Facebook friends, for all the new tips, tweets, and retweets. He's so nice. God, what a guy. Letters and reports and calls to talk radio. They made a big difference. I hope new readers will join the fight. Most newspapers do not report on black mob violence, but the pictures tell the real story. So do the eyewitness accounts on the internet. And a reporter from a major daily paper in St. Louis defended his paper's refusal to make any connection between race and violent crimes by saying everyone already knows who did it anyway. Whoa, I bet he still has a job. Here we verify, not guess. While I rely on local news for facts about the attacks, for racial identity of the attackers, most of the time I took the pictures from the papers, YouTube, and internet, good old-fashioned reporting. Talking about race and crime and violence on our talk radio show, my brother and I have learned many people want to deny it and then explain it away. Underneath the denials and explanations are the crimes. That's what this book is about. We are going to look at many stories of racial violence across the country from roughly 2009 to present to show how widespread, violent, and detached these riots are. We'll look at the facts of the riots, the lawless and deniers. When you can come to your own conclusions, or even ideas that cause the solutions. But the facts of the violence must come first. Let's start in Philly. And that's where I'm going to end it today. But next time, I will read the Philadelphia syndrome. If a liberal reporter gets beat up in a race riot, did it really happen? It's not our fault you can't fight. So look forward to that. And yeah, like and subscribe. This has been Spencer McGreal. I'll see you lovelies later.